Hey, how's everybody doing? The word for today is endure. And we're going to look at the book of Romans and look at a few scriptures in chapters 3 and 4. And first, the good news of Jesus Christ is more than facts to be believed, but it's also a life to be lived. God's righteousness can be obtained through faith. And Paul says in Romans chapter 3, verse 21, but now the righteousness of God, apart from the law, because he was speaking to the Jews then, is revealed, being witnessed by the law and the prophets, even the righteousness of God through faith in Jesus Christ, to all and on all who believe. For there is no difference. For all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. And then in chapter 4 at verse 1, Paul uses Abraham as the example to say that if Abraham was justified by his works, then he would have something to boast about. The point is that Abraham put his faith in God. And for those that don't know the story of Abraham, God told him to take his son up to the mountain and offer him up as a sacrifice. And Abraham was grieved by this. Nonetheless, he did take his son up to the mountain and laid him on the rocks. And right before he went to sacrifice his son, he heard a ram. Because back in those days, they had to sacrifice animals. So he heard a ram caught up in the thicket. And that was symbolic to show that God would provide the sacrifice, and that no man on earth was able to be the sufficient sacrifice for all mankind. But Abraham proved his faith in God by taking that step. He didn't know that the ram was going to be there, but he believed and trusted and had faith in God. See, God tested Abraham by telling him to do something that he wouldn't fathom of doing otherwise. But through Abraham's faith in God, he was counted as righteous. And Abraham had to endure through the thought of killing his own son and to keep his focus on what God wanted him to do. See, in almost every trial or test of faith, the temptation is to put the focus on ourselves. And then the questions come into our minds. Why is this happening to me? And why did this go wrong? And why is God allowing this to happen? And the continual tests and trials in some way proves God's patience and his commitment to help us grow in faith. It occurred to me some time ago that it's better to respond than to react to situations and circumstances. Because to me, a response is more of a logical way of addressing the situation, whereas a reaction is more of an emotional way of dealing with the situation. In every situation, we have a choice to make whether we're going to choose to wallow in the mire, so to speak, or are we going to give it to God and just recognize that, hey, we're dealing with a situation right now, but we're choosing not to sit in that situation, and because we can't do anything about it, and not to let the circumstances overcome us, and just sit and trust in his faith. So 2 Timothy chapter 4 verses 7 through 8, Paul was telling us that his time was almost up. And at verse 7, he says, I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Finally, there is laid up for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will give to me on that day. And not only to me, but to all who believed and who have loved his appearing. And 1 Corinthians 10:13 says, no temptation has overtaken you that is not common to man. God is faithful, and he will not let you be tempted beyond your ability. But with the temptation, he also provides the way of escape, that you may be able to endure it. So the word for today is to endure. We go through all kinds of stuff, and it gets rough in many situations, but we have to endure. We have to have faith. We have to know that God is with us, and he's not going to give us anything that we can't handle. With the temptation comes the way out. So don't sit in the circumstances. Don't focus on the circumstances. Focus on God. Don't put yourself in the situation. Just recognize it, and that's where the blessing is that you can see it and give it to God. And before you know it, it'll be taken care of. So I hope this reaches who it needs to reach, and I know it will, because God's word does not come back void. And I want you to go out there and have a blessed day and a blessed week also. God bless.